Thank you very much for coming. I'd like to introduce myself, and Joy and Kleef will do the same. I'm Judy Harris, and I'm just finishing a stint at Thompson Rivers University as an open learning scholar, visiting scholar. And I generally these days work freelance. I have a lot of experience in South Africa and in the UK in the general area of PLAR. Probably best known for my book, Retheorizing the Recognition of Prior Learning. Little plug because it's on sale here today. So if I can just quickly hand over to Joy for her introduction, and then we'll kick off. Yeah, you do that.
Can everyone see me?
You've got your heels on.
I know. I need a stool. My name is Joy Van Kleef. I'm with the Canadian Institute for Recognizing Learning. I'm a researcher and coordinator of projects regarding adult learning, recognition of learning, labor force development in Canada and internationally. I'm sort of a piece of the furniture in the PLAR community, so I won't do too much of an introduction. I think there is some biographical information in the program, so I'll just leave it at that for the moment.
She'll be back. Okay. Can you see me? No. Okay, good. Two parts to this session. The first part is a little bit provocative, and deliberately so, because my thinking is that as a PLAR community, we might have got ourselves a little bit stuck in what we've termed, and what the title of the session is, a discourse of righteousness. And that's with our adult and our experiential learning theories and models and practices, and so on. So, and also my thinking is that this might be impeding our progress somewhat. So I'm going to talk about this issue by drawing on a couple of chapters from the Retheorizing book, Retheorizing RPL. In the second part of the session, called New Theorizing, Joy and I, both of us, will address the question of new research. And we'll be talking about the work of PLAR, the Prior Learning International Recognition Centre, which is based at TRU, and a new book that we are busy putting together, which is called, at the moment, the working title is Researching Prior Learning. So really what we're kind of getting at here in this session is to try and encourage more research in the field, in the PLAR field. We seem to lack an active research community which would support and help us to develop our practice, to help us develop what we do. Okay, so why do I think that we may have become stuck in a discourse of righteousness? Well, my thinking is that we've come to believe that PLAR is self-evidently a good thing. We can all, and we enumerate the benefits for all stakeholders, for individuals, for employers, for education institutions. Should I just pause for a moment? I seem to have a bit of feedback going on. Okay, right. So my thinking is that we've come to a point where we think that PLAR is self-evidently a good thing, and we can enumerate, and we do, benefits for individuals, for individual stakeholders, for employers, for education institutions, for the nation. How can anybody in their right mind be against us and be against PLAR? What's more, we have our own body of theory, and we have our models of practice that work for us. we've got adult and experiential learning, we've got Kolb, we've got Knowles, we've got Lewin, we can trace our roots back to Dewey, if we so desire, we've got David Bowd, we've got Sean. What more could we possibly need? But what I'm going to do now is to hand over to Joy, and she's going to give you a little bit of background about PLAR. Okay?
Thank you. Will the camera work if I stand over to the side, and will the microphone work if I stand here rather than behind the...
It's very dim. It doesn't sound that great, but you can do it.
Okay.
You can tilt it, and that's perfect.
Okay, maybe I'll do that, since I do like to see the audience. And which button are you pushing to move these slides? The mouse, okay. All right, well, I'm going to talk just for a couple of minutes. I'm going to come back later, but for the moment, I just want to introduce PLAR to those of you who are not familiar with it. You will see in some of the literature, it's called the Prior Learning International Research Center or Consortium. It's really the same organization. We're just, as someone said yesterday, we're not quite sure yet whether we're a consortium or a center. That is in the works. So PLAR is a relatively new organization. It's the brainchild of Christine Wyhock at Thompson Rivers University in British Columbia. The idea really began to form during and as a result of the two meetings of minds that brought universities from across the country together in 2007 and 2008. And Christine was also heavily influenced by the book that Judy and Per Anderson edited, Retheorizing Prior Learning. PLAR now is a group, has membership of 8 countries. That includes England, Scotland, France, Sweden, Australia, South Africa, Canada, the United States. So it's a pretty interesting collection of people. They're all researchers, lead researchers from those countries. And the purpose of the group is to promote new, innovative, and provocative research in the area of recognizing prior learning. We are a small group, and we probably intend to stay that way in the short term until we get our sea legs. And then we'll certainly plan to expand membership by inviting individuals who are lead researchers in other countries. We have managed to develop four working groups. One is on networking, one is on dissemination, one on policies, and one on research. So together we're going to attempt to, in effect, promote new and further research strategies, all in the area of recognizing prior learning. Now, I'm just going to speak very briefly about 2 of the things that we're doing. One is the book, which I'll mention in a moment, but the other one is a new project, and it's a very exciting project. And it came from a view of the web that I was going through. I'm really one of those lurkers and browsers. I'm always looking for stuff on the recognition of prior learning on the web. So one day I came across the Observal site, which is a site managed by the European University Continuing Education Network, or Lifelong Learning Network. And they have created a tool, shows a map of Europe and a little flag on every country. And when you click on the map, up comes a lot of they're still building it, but comes research, policies, and reports on recognition of prior learning in that country. So I saw that tool and thought, oh my gosh, this is such a great idea for Canada. We could do the same kind of thing for provinces and territories. And then, of course, I thought of PLAR. I thought, well, we don't have to just do it for Canada. We could do it for all the countries currently with membership in PLAR, at least to start. So that sort of began the ball rolling, and so I went off to UKen, which I was having a meeting in Brussels, and I was successful in obtaining their database, the fundamentals, the software of their database. And so the next project is an offshoot of PLAR. It's a partnership between Thompson Rivers University, my organization, the Canadian Institute for Recognizing Learning, and Empire State University. And the other countries who are represented in PLAR are collaborators in the project. And we're going to establish an international database. It's first starting with these 8 countries. And the long-term result will be a database for researchers and policymakers and practitioners to go to identify research from all over the world on recognition of prior learning. So it's for a very, very exciting development in our research capacity, in our capacity to bring both practitioners and academic researchers together in one place to promote collaboration and capacity building in research. So I did send an email to Christine, and Judy sent one day and said, "My goodness, I'm so excited about a database. Could that possibly be true? I think I need a life." And the second issue is really, the second project is this book. Also a very important step forward in promoting the recognition of prior learning. That also has chapters from members in the on PLAR. So there's chapters from 8 countries, and it does more than describe, it's more than just a sharing of information or statistical representations. Each author has looked at research and prior learning from a different lens, a particular lens from their country. And so it really starts to raise some interesting and provocative questions about how far we have gone in research. Judy has been working with Christine Wahak to pull the themes of the book together and the state of PLAR and what's needed next. And she's going to, she has given you a bit of a taste of those. Oh, no, you haven't talked about the themes yet. She's going to, yes, that was yesterday. She is going to give you a taste of those themes now, and then I'll talk more specifically about how those themes play out in Canadian research. Thank you.
Okay. It's time to give you a taste of the themes, reading across the chapters. So these are kind of international themes about, well, firstly, actually about PLAR practice, because when people were writing their book chapters, when people were writing their book chapters, it was very hard to keep the focus on research without talking about practice. So the first set of sort of themes really are actually what we can say with some degree of confidence about the state of PLAR practice internationally in the countries that we have chapters on, and based on the research that each author did in their own country. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of those points. So we can say that more and more governments are actually embracing PLAR as part of lifelong learning policy and qualifications frameworks, particularly the case in the EU, in Australia, and in South Africa. It's also true to say that PLAR is growing without these drivers. I mean, to some extent, it's growing here in Canada still. It's growing in the United States, but more and more government involvement. We're also, I'm just moving to point 3 now, picking up how implementation is very uneven, and it's uneven across educational sectors. It's uneven in terms of its embeddedness in government policy, and it's uneven in terms of its take-up in workplaces and in relation to workforce development. And it's sad to say that most countries do report a disappointingly low take-up of PLAR, even in contexts like in Australia, where PLAR is mandatory as part of any program that's on the Australian qualifications framework. Still kind of low, and again, this links to the point about our need for more research, the ongoing resistance of higher education to PLAR. I think I'm going to just jump ahead there to talk about what we found about research, because this is the nub of it really. So what can we say with some confidence about the state of PLAR research internationally? Well, we can say that researchers and scholars are actually few and far between. It was noted by in all of the chapters. The South African writer, she referred to a kind of, I think she used the term introspective, and then later on she used the term introverted. an introverted community, often researching itself. Key individuals playing a very active and productive role in the community, but it's small. It needs to grow. I'll just touch on point 3 there, that there is a fair amount of research out there, but we could call the field fragmented. It's a very fragmented research field. Very often researchers don't know much about research beyond their own countries or context, or sometimes even within it. And what was important and came across very strongly in terms of this fragmentation of research is that because of the fragmentation, it's difficult for people to build on the research that's already gone before, to make it more cumulative so that we can actually say more things with more confidence about PLAR. Now, the database will help enormously with that because it will give us a place where all the research literature can be available so that we can work in different ways. Just touch on point 5. Most of the research around the world in PLAR is qualitative. Lots of interviews with PLAR candidates, lots of case studies, lots of evaluations of projects and so on. But again, not much pulling together of it all. Countries like the States and Australia and some in Canada, I believe, there have been quite a few large-scale quantitative studies, but many of them tend to be descriptive and don't move a step further towards being more explanatory or predictive. So there's more we can do there. So what can we say about islands of good practice? Where are the pockets? So if you wanted to find research that was theoretical and critical about PLAR, you'd probably look to South Africa. And maybe it's because of the history of activism and political activism in South Africa, but they don't take things for granted. So when I arrived there with this idea of RPL, as they call it, it was shaken and interrogated by the roots. What is this thing? What is it going to do for redress in this country at this particular time? It's very good for me. And I think as a result, well, not as a result, but a lot of the international models didn't work in South Africa. So there has to have to be some rethinking going on there. I'll just pick up quickly on point 3, that, as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of large-scale quantitative studies, particularly in the States. And what they have actually done is they do give us hard evidence of the actual benefits and outcomes of PLAR for individuals. They've tracked longitudinally various, the career outcomes and various other variables in terms of PLAR candidates over time. I think I'm going to move on quickly. Okay, research directions. What can we say about how we could possibly advance the field of research internationally? Just pick up on a couple of things here. Although the second point there, although most of the research is qualitative, the methods that we tend to use are quite narrow. As I said, we evaluate practice, we interview a few people, we write up case studies and so on. So there's a need to broaden out the kind of methods that we use within the sort of qualitative paradigm, if you like. Point 3 there, and it's building on the re-theorizing book in a way. Can we bring a range of different ideas and concepts to bear on our practice, to tell us more about practice, to help us to develop some clearer ideas and some future directions? They're doing quite a lot in Sweden in terms of using particular theoretical frameworks and lenses. I mean, we think about all the learning theories out there beyond adult and experiential learning. They could be brought to bear. If we think about, if we wanted to look at gender dimensions within PLAR, again, if we wanted to look more in the employment field, then there's a lot of concepts and ideas from the labour market and so on. So we could broaden the lenses that we use to look at PLAR. And the final point there is more nuanced research. I think it would be great if around the world we could actually look at things like, so what is the effect of trade unions being involved in PLAR in the workplace? How are language issues addressed in PLAR? And I'm thinking there about sort of multilingual situations as well as the language of the PLAR process. And as I was doing this work, it became clear to me that there's so much that different countries could learn from each other. And I'm thinking, well, there could be special interest groups. I mean, if we wanted to do some international work on PLAR and workforce development, then there would be examples from Scotland, leads that could be taken from Scotland, from Australia, and to some extent also from Canada. If we wanted to look at PLAR in vocational education, then Sweden has focused on that, Australia has focused on that, and they haven't focused on PLAR in higher education, and so on. So I could see lots and lots and lots of possibilities for synergy that are not really happening at the moment. And I'm going to hand over now back to Joy to talk about the particular, the Canadian chapter and the findings about research in Canada. Thank you, Kate.
Okay. So what I did was I took the same categories for discussion that that Judy talked about, and I have some comments to share with you around how that looks in Canada. So the first theme that she talked about was implementation and practice. So we are pretty aware that overall PLAR practice in Canada remains fairly scattered and tentative, although that picture itself is a moving target. The education sector, especially the colleges, are still the most advanced sectors, although some universities are now moving forward, not only with PLAR policies, but practices. There was a study, I actually did the study in 2009 that showed that between 2004 and 2007, colleges and universities conducted over 50,000 assessments in those 3 academic years in Canada. So that's the kind of statistic that we haven't seen before, and it's nothing to sneeze at. I think it's quite an accomplishment. Now, when you dig deeper behind those statistics, you do find that those assessments were done in certain programs, certain disciplines, certain institutions. So you begin to see, again, the pocketing of PLAR activity, although the overall impact of 50,000 assessments actually is probably second. Well, a lot of statistics, as you know, internationally are not kept, and France probably has the most complete stats. And but as far as I know, France is the only one that could provide you with stats that exceeds those statistics from Canada. So PLAR also, we see that it has emerged, but in the absence of certain, not just certain disciplines within the education sector, but also it's scattered in different work sectors. Regulated professions are moving forward, but everywhere there is a bit of a window gap that we need to address around explicit quality measures. How do we know what the results of prior learning assessment are? Are we confident that those 50,000 assessments are something that we can rely on, both in terms of the decisions we make, the decisions individuals make about their futures, and the decisions policymakers can make in terms of supporting PLAR as an initiative. But overall, we do have a pretty good idea of what's going on. The Achieving Our Potential report in 2008, led by the Prior Learning Centre in Halifax, is a particularly good example of collective work that has been done researching PLAR activities across Canada. And Nova Scotia has just recently completed a complete environmental scan of PLAR in the province, including all sectors. So that's the kind of work that can be a really effective building block for further research. I couldn't help, I was struck this morning with the presentation by David Walden about the issues that UNESCO is, the kinds of issues around education that UNESCO is faced with, and the numbers that he was sharing with us. And I couldn't help but think that the issues that we face in recognition of prior learning in Canada are almost what you would call boutique issues, compared to the challenges that countries like South Africa have faced and face, with millions of people whose learning, and not just South Africa, but whose learning is experientially based, not academically, hasn't been academically driven, and yet we need to find ways to recognize the knowledge and skills that they have developed over generations. The kinds of approaches that we have to PLAR, as Judy said, in South Africa, the international models didn't work, and it's quite understandable. But there is, I think, opportunities for us to use research to understand these differences between the contexts that recognition needs to take place, and to have different groups working together to try and find better ways to do that. Madhu Singh was here earlier in the session. She has left, but she has been engaged with the UNESCO initiative on partnering North countries and South countries. Those are metaphorical, North and South really, countries together in a way that where countries that are more developed in the recognition of prior learning can partner with countries that are less developed, so that they can learn from each other about what this really means. And it really is a two-way street in that project. So the state of research in Canada, one of the chapters in the book, we looked at all of the research that was done in Canada between 1995 and 2009. It's going to be expanded slightly to 2010. Based on certain criteria to define research, which is also a challenge, I identified 80 research studies that have been done. They've targeted different stakeholder groups. They have been conducted by a range of types of researchers. So again, we have this scattered, tentative approach to research, and by tentative I mean that of all those studies, there were 37 studies, incidentally, that were done led by universities, but only 6 of those studies were done by the same person twice. In other words, we have all these one-off research studies in Canada, mostly descriptive, small-scale, qualitative studies, and when people are finished with their study, they move on to new things. It's very hard to review the literature, the research literature, in any terms in Canada on PLAR, not because the research hasn't been taken place, but because it doesn't reach the stage of publication. And so really sharing the results of research, we have to do a better job of that in Canada. Think of the projects that you are all involved in now, or have been, let's just even say in the last 2 years. How many of those have resulted in a publication that has been shared nationally? We're certainly going to be encouraging that at PLAR, and now we have a database that can put the results of that research and make it internationally available. I spoke very quickly to the gentleman who did the boat builders presentation there this morning. A very interesting workplace-based prior learning assessment process, and yet there's no documentation to share that with anyone beyond those who were lucky enough to share that, to be in the room during his presentation. The researchers are primarily adult educators in a variety of sectors. But there is this disjuncture, this disconnect between the people who practice, or the people who ask the practical questions, and the people who ask the theoretical questions. And there's very little opportunity for dialogue between those. Much of the research is done by academic researchers in the universities. Much of the work is done by community colleges, practitioners in the community colleges. Community colleges do not have a history or a tradition or a culture of targeted research, strategic research approaches to research, and yet they're the ones that are actually learning the most about how the recognition of prior learning unfolds in the field. So we need to find ways to bring the people with the theoretical ideas and questions and the people with the practical ideas and questions together. We need to do a better job at that. Most of the research is cross-sectional, meaning that it studies a particular issue around prior learning assessment and recognition at a particular point in time. We have not been very good at predicting or at doing large-scale, particularly quantitative studies. Islands of good practice. I think I've covered that to some extent. We're good at researching the application of methods and tools in different contexts with different groups. That's really our strength. But we need to move on from that. And I think there is a body of research in Canada and internationally now that allows us to move on, to start to build, to synthesize or consolidate the qualitative research that we've done. We're at the point where we can make some generalizations if we do consolidate that research and move the questions that we're asking. We need to change. I think one of the answers, perhaps, to Judy's comments about why isn't this moving forward is we keep asking the same questions. We have answers to some of those questions. Some of them we don't. For those unanswered, long-standing questions, maybe we need to change the methods that we're using in order to answer those questions. Piloting, obviously, across the country has been a real strength. So to advance, what's necessary to advance in the field? I think it depends on the purpose that we think research can and should serve. Certainly one of the things that I've already mentioned that we need to do is to publish. You need to think about all of the excellent work that you're doing, and you need to find ways to work together. Identify people who have published, ask them to work with you. PLAR, we hope, will be doing some encouragement in that area, perhaps facilitating some mentoring down the road to bring these kinds of research strategies together. We need to use theoretical research to inform practical research. And as a community, we need to be more accepting that growth can come from critique. I agree with Judy's analysis about the discourse of righteousness. PLAR, my own view is that PLAR was so fragile in the early years that those of us who started to investigate it, we needed to advocate for it in order to make it happen. And there was a definite concern that if we critiqued it in any way that might jeopardize its fragile life as it was unfolding across the different contexts in Canada. I see myself as having done that. But I think we are a mature enough community now with enough body behind us that while we have been sensitive to critique, it's time to move on and to perhaps benefit from exercising the same kind of self-reflection that we encourage adult learners to do in the practice of recognizing prior learning. So I will turn this back over to Judy to continue with her.
We have finished.
Oh.
It's open to questions, discussion, comments, critique.